What's up, LEGO builders? It's time to build an Apocalypse class mech. What is that, you might ask? Good question. I'm not really sure either, but I need to figure out what exactly that is and how I'm going to build this super weapon, which is for my HADF military. Today, I'll be going over my plans for this new vehicle, as well as dropping more lore on what happened after the battle for my LEGO city of Moenia Prime. If you're excited, don't forget to open fire on that like button, and let's get building. Normally, I'll start a video by explaining the why behind it. In this case, why big mech? But today, I'm going to save the why for the end of the video and jump right into the what. Before I can get building, I need to establish what this mech's going to look like, and at this scale I feel like there are two main options. First, the supersized Jaeger design, like in Pacific Rim, running around, dodging kaiju, and punching them in the face. Essentially a human blown up to an impossible size. The second option is less maneuverable, but in my opinion more deadly, the walking battle platform. Think Titan Mech from Warhammer 40k. These are slightly less humanoid looking, and instead of dancing around throwing punches, they hit you with something called a volcano cannon, or a warp missile. I would much rather take a punch to the face than a hit from something called a volcano cannon. This is the route I'm gonna go. A two-legged walker that has a couple of massive weapons and a host of smaller ones throughout its body. I built this little guy to help envision what I'm talking about. It's a pretty standard design with two weapons connected to the torso, and instead of a head, it'll have a large cockpit here where the pilots will be. CT Perrin's Bridgewalker mech is a great example of what I want to do. A mobile battle station used to transport and operate weapons the size of a building. But I'm sure what people are the most interested in is exactly how big this thing's gonna be. But to figure that out, I need to get building. I like to start all my mechs by building the feet. They're one of the most important components of the build, since weak, undersized feet mean your mech's gonna tip over and have the stability of a Wookiee who's had 3 too many death sticks and is trying to walk to the bathroom. Another key thing with the feet is they help me figure out the scale and overall size of a build. In this case, I'm shooting for the mech to be almost 2 feet tall, which means I'm gonna need some size 300 Air Jordans over here. Once I build a foot that I envision can hold up a mech of that size, I scale the rest of the build around it. I'll admit, there's a lot of guesswork and rebuilding involved, but I'm no expert at supersized mechs, and if I decided the feet need to be a little bigger or smaller in the future, I can fairly easily adjust them. The important thing now is hammering out the rough size and design. I had a pretty clear vision for what I wanted the feet to look like. Simple oval boots. No claws, spurs, or fancy designs going on, just a simple mound of steel and joints. That means pulling out all my bins of dark bluish gray slopes and experimenting until I find the right combinations. This needs to hold up a very heavy build, and I don't want the mech tipping over at the slightest touch, so I'm making these very wide and dense, with a core of 2x bricks smoothed out into the correct shape by slopes. The larger the footprint, the better, and honestly, I think even oversizing these a bit bigger than they need to be wouldn't hurt. That being said, I do want the feet to look cool and have some personality. A mech's foot is going to be full of pistons, pipes, and supports, so I want to add some pop-ups and other bulky sections to make it feel like there's a lot going on here. Plus, this is for my HADF military, so I need to sprinkle in their iconic dark green highlights. The first foot is done, and I like what I'm seeing. I wanted something that looked almost like the armored boot of a medieval knight, and all the slopes being slightly offset from each other on the front helps make it look smooth but have a little texture as well. This foot already dwarfs a minifig and is the size of some of my smaller mechs laid down, giving me hope that a truly massive mech is really in the works here. I would like this behemoth to have some mobility if possible, so I'm using these 2x2 Technic pins and sockets for the ankle joint, doubling them up of course. I've been using these a lot recently, and they're much stronger than the 2x2 ball joint I normally use. I've been following a page on Instagram called Mech who's been cooking up some insane builds, and I noticed they made good use of these Technic hinge bricks, which have a ton of friction and are perfect for supporting a massive leg. I've had people asking me for mech building tips recently, and one thing that's really helped me is learning from other people, looking at their builds and learning what pieces they use and why. This can help get the ball rolling and ignite your own imagination for ideas. Those 3 round hinges, once stuck together, will act as a reverse knee joint. I've been noticing so many mechs seem to have 2 knee joints. The upper one typically bends forward like a human's, and then another underneath it that bends backwards. This unique setup helps stabilize your build, and I would recommend trying to add an extra joint or 2 into your mech legs, as it really improves the design. Now that the skeleton of the bottom leg segment is built, I need to cover it up and make everything look pretty with slopes. I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the foot and just panel the sides with whatever works. Because this leg is so big, I've had to ditch a lot of the smaller slopes I normally imply for these bigger ones, which has me wondering how much of the leg I can actually get built in this update, since I don't have many of the larger variety of slope in large quantities, and some of them were supposed to be for another video coming up later this month. Oh well, as I like to say, that's future Ethan's problem. So far, so good. The shin of the leg is mostly done, but the backside is painfully exposed, and since I have no studs to work with, I'm going to need to get a little creative. I've learned basing a mech's design off of human anatomy can help me tackle certain tricky spots, and here I'm going to try to build a calf muscle of sorts that gets larger as you go up the leg. This molded cockpit piece, when turned upside down, should provide the desired look, and a couple bracket plates will help connect it to the next chunk of the build. The last chunk will be more tricky since it's this large molded windshield piece, and I can't just attach it to the back of the mech's leg because the two anti-stud sides are facing each other. I cooked up a little technique for just this type of situation, which uses a couple of round 1x2 plates with T-brackets attached to the bottom. I stick 2 more round plates on the exposed T-brackets facing the other direction, and now I have a brick that has studs on both ends. For that second knee joint, I'm once again using the big round hinges, but this time they're going to be fixed in place. Connected to a series of Technic bricks which will make up the skeleton, I'm covering up the hinges with plate, and the plan is to secure this part so the hinges can't bend. I'm not sure how much longer I can build before the pieces run out, but I would like to finish this hinge area. It looks really cool and mechanical, so I want to take advantage of that and leave it partially exposed to capture the aesthetic. The plan is to run some slopes up and over the edges of the hinge, connected in the middle by this round pipe. Once again, I'm trying to use pieces other than bricks to make this feel a little more complicated and mechanical. The double-sided stud technique is coming in clutch over here as well and will be used for a panel that'll cover the back of the knee, and after that I'm just going to cover up the sides with more slopes, trying pieces and pulling them off until I get something that looks good. After all the segments are connected, this leg already stands just over 12 inches or 30 centimeters, so I'm well on my way to creating a nearly 2-foot tall mech. I really like the shape of the leg. It's got that extra joint that allows it to simultaneously stand upright but also be in a crouch for maximum stability. But this segment alone used up pretty much all the larger dark bluish gray slopes I have, so this will be as far as I can go until the next update. I did, however, promise to end the video by talking about why I'm tackling such a potentially insane project, and for that, we need to travel back to my Lego city of Moenia Prime and learn what happened after the final battle between the HADF and Quadranids. If this is the first video of mine you're watching and you're a little confused, I'd recommend checking out the video I have pinned in the comments first to give you some context. A tall purple canister glows at the center of a dark room, holding a sole occupant who stares through the glass at its captors. It's a small alien known as a Quadranid, belonging to a race of aliens who were recently expelled from the megacity Moenia Prime after an intense battle between them and the forces of humanity, the HADF. In the aftermath of the battle, as the HADF were regrouping, this alien was discovered, trapped under a fallen mech before its pod had a chance to eject and fly off with the rest of its race. Now, a week later, it's been transported back to the capital and is secured deep in an underground bunker in this climate-controlled canister. The creature couldn't communicate with the HADF scientists directly, but its pod could translate what they said to the Quadranid and in turn give its reply. After a few days of little communication, HADF Command came to visit the Quadranid and a deal was struck. It would be freed to return to its race if the HADF's questions were answered, and there were a lot of them. But foremost was the question of why. Why had the Quadranids come to Kofera and infiltrated Moenia Prime? After a long pause, the mechanical voice of the pod emanated through the canister's comms. We had no choice but to flee our world and take what we've been working on with us. A device that would allow someone to travel the stars almost instantly and reach any planet they desired. If the Hungry One were to get a hold of this technology, the entire galaxy would be engulfed in fire and war. We hid it here on your world, and when the time is right, we will reclaim it and leave to find a home where the Hungry One can't find us. It was a grim party that exited the containment room after the meeting had ended. The Quadranid pilot had continued on telling the history of its race and reasons for attacking Moenia Prime. The information provided chilled the hearts of HADF Command, and for all the unanswered questions they still had, one thing was certain. Humanity was not prepared for what's coming. 3 days later, Project Stormwall was created in the process of designing, building, and most importantly, figuring out how to power the first Apocalypse-class mech had begun. I'll admit, I was hesitant to go ahead with this project. A mech of this scale and complexity felt like something beyond my current skills, but it was also something that really excited me, and I knew the best way to figure out how to build a massive mech is to just start. This will be by no means a fast project. I really want to take my time and get this right, so there's no timeline for when these updates will come out or how often. Right now, I plan on having at least one update per month till it's done, but that could change depending on time and budget situations. That's it for episode 1, and I hope you're as excited for Project Stormwall as I am. And until next time, happy building.